During your talk, which was awesome, by the way, and you should
Thanks,
totally do
Estelle.
it off the cuff more often because you were great. So,
Thanks, Estelle.
you mentioned that there's an inclusion, product inclusion
Yeah.
guide. Is that something that's widely available? Can we get our hands on that?
That's such a good question.
And then you said there's another guide as well, and I didn't hear what you said, so I missed that one.
So we have a product inclusion roadmap that actually came out inside of Google only in October. So we were one of the first products to actually use the roadmap. And then there's a set of product inclusion guidelines, mostly around accessibility. So those, I think Lara might be making them available through the community. And it's basically a checklist of things that you would try and follow in order to pass the different levels of GAR testing. So I think that is available, but I'm not entirely sure how. So you can email me if you want, and I can actually just like give you them, I'm sure, because it's like pretty straightforward checklists, and maybe even talk to the community about making those public, because that makes a lot of sense. The roadmap is super new. And I was really interested in seeing it. There's a number of things that you can do in the stages of building a product that get you thinking about not just the audience you think you have, but the audience you could potentially have and how you might be alienating them. So I can check on that too if you want to. Yeah, shoot me an email, because that isn't public, because it's not because of any privacy reason, but because it literally got launched in October, and I'm guessing they want to actually have some products that are using it all the way to the end before they actually seal the deal on it being effective. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to also say thanks for the great talk, and I have I guess a two-part question. First of all, I tend to nerd out on tools like web.dev and page speed insights and whatnot, and Lighthouse. So I guess before I ask my question, I want to ask, since you're asking for feedback, who do you see as the ideal user of web.dev? I mean, what do you see as their goal?
There's 2 users. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
I think the first user is anyone who's built a website can use web.dev to monitor it and make sure that it's healthy in a pretty straightforward, simple way. That's the first user. So that's anyone who has a website who wants the simplest path to keep it healthy over time. And I think that the second user would be people who are trying to learn how to build websites that are more aligned with now. And that person could be someone who's built a simple, like, hello world, but actually never built a real thing, and we can help them do that. Or it could be someone who's been building e-commerce apps for a really long time, but not building healthy e-commerce apps. And so I think that's the second audience. So people who actually want to build websites well and learn how to do it step by step quickly, I think that's the second audience.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up with that and give you some background on, and I don't think this is going to be a question. It might be a comment, so I apologize in advance, but it's just for the feedback. So I've been a search engine optimization content website, been running it for 10 years, and I think with all the fake news things that happened after Trump, I got hit with a lot of the flux that happened in the search engine result pages, or SERPs. And so a point of frustration with a lot of the tools that Google releases is that I will often have higher scores than the websites that rank higher than me in the search results. And I find it a little bit frustrating when you have like an SEO score, like I'll have an SEO score of 100, and the number 1 or number 2 or number 3 result will have like a 50 or a 60. So I think Google is putting out these tools for SEOs to kind of gauge how well their sites are doing, but obviously it's not reflecting the reality of what the actual algorithm is doing. So my suggestion or my comment would be to relabel the SEO score into something else, maybe. So that's just a suggestion.
So, like, first of all, welcome to the community.
Yeah, thank you.
We were so stoked when we realized you were, like, actually using the tool.
I mean, I nerd out on the tools.
Yeah,
I'm proud to say that I have
I
run myfooddata.com. I have a 96 to 100 score on the Google Page Speeds Insights. I have a 96 to 100 score on the SEO metric per web.dev. I'm doing everything I can to provide great content. But I do find it frustrating that I have higher scores per your web.dev metrics released by Google officially,
Yeah.
but not ranking higher in the search engine results against my competition. So obviously there's other factors that are entering there, like brand recognition, online and offline brand recognition, trust and whatnot, that it would be nice to see either enveloped into the SEO score of web.dev, but obviously you guys can't tell
No, we
people,
can't.
you can't be a webmaster tools. So I think, so I guess it's just feedback, that I understand you're trying to give us guidance, and I love the guidance, and I'm gonna try to get all 100s all the time in web.dev because I just nerd out on that and I love it.
So,
But I'm just gonna say it's a little bit frustrating. So
yeah,
it's just
I
more
think-
feedback than a question. Yeah.
I think that that's really positive feedback from the point of view that we are saying we want to reach you, and like we've got a long way to go, right, to meet you where you are. So I really appreciate that feedback. I also there are conversations going on inside our team around like, hey, like we don't work on, we're not the search team, we're Chrome, right? But we also are really aware of the fact that it sends signals to people when we're like, hey, do the right thing, but we don't have any kind of I don't know, carrot stick, whatever going on. Like, we're just like, be good, right? Like, just be good people. So we are trying to understand that from a really practical, fair point of view, thinking of the developer first. But it is tricky because we don't actually work in search, and we're not privy to all the algorithms. We don't, and it is something that's kept really private from the whole world for reasons, good reasons, not bad reasons, although I do think you're right, there's some ethical things coming out now, right? But from the Chrome team's perspective, we do talk about that.
Okay,
So the
well,
feedback is good.
Yeah, okay, I'm just going to say thanks for your efforts, and I guess
Yeah.
I'll try to stop talking. But yeah, it is
I love what you're saying.
The last
so
thing
you
I will
can-
say is it's a little bit frustrating when you see a site that ranks #1 that's full of ads and is super slow, and you've like made a
Yeah.
super fast, website that's trying to, trying to comply with
Yeah,
good
we're
content.
not using sticks.
Yeah,
It's
so-
totally true.
So I'm just going to say thank you. So that's more like my feedback than a question, which I apologize for, but thanks for what
That was
you're doing.
cool.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi. Yeah. So I guess my question is more about. So you mentioned one of your targets is that, or one of your goals is to get developers to look at more of the principles than sort of just the targeted. I've got this one problem to solve. Just look at that one. Guide. Do you have any preliminary idea of like why folks are not looking at these multiple, many like facets of how to make a great website? And I guess fundamentally, is this the goal of like why is that the goal to get people to look at everything, or to sort of go down the entire path as opposed to just like I've got one problem to solve, let me fix this one thing of performance?
Yeah, so I think that we'll still have the principles, and I think they'll be more clearly tied to the audits. So it'll be a much clearer, I'm optimizing my site. These are the things I can improve upon in terms of performance. So that's one of the things we actually are realizing. Like when somebody wants to just like make their site faster, we should just tell them how to do that and not confuse it with other tasks. So I do think we'll try and provide that in a clearer fashion. But the other side of it, and I think this is a really valuable side that's hard to quantify, but it's the basic idea of most people when they're trying to make their site fast, well, actually, take reverse. Most people don't have time to make their site fast, and they don't have time to make their site accessible. They just have time to make their site work. So our experiment, our next experiment, is to make it easier for people to make their site work. So do push notifications, do service worker, do some pretty cool, easy UX stuff. And inside of that, we'll just automatically help you understand how to do it in a way that's healthy, which might not necessarily be available if you were learning it through like 1,000 different docs that you read. And to be fair, this might not work. It's absolutely an experiment trying to go horizontal. But we feel like if we go really vertical with the audits on the optimized side and then horizontal on the building something new, we might make some groundwork, but we might not. So we should pay attention to that.
Thank you.
Hi. So my question is related to how to sell initiatives to the product team in order to invest in speed. So you mentioned ADI frequently and I read, I think, the cost of JavaScript a couple of months ago. And we always said, like, okay, the fastest the page is, it's going to give more money to you. And for example, we have data in our application that we know what is the traffic that we get in the page, we know what is the conversion rate of our application, and we know the speed, but we cannot do like a direct link in which if I make my site 1% faster, what is going to be the benefit? So I can go with the leadership team and sell these kind of initiatives. So what will be your suggestion to me in this case?
I'm going to pass this over to Hussein. I don't know if you were in the talk earlier. I didn't even introduce you.
No,
So Hussein is, first of all, amazing. And second of all, he is a lead for, he took the lead on a lot of our JavaScript stuff for the web.dev launch, but now he's taking a lead on a bigger, broader scale, both part of the performance team and then also integrating frameworks and libraries into that performance story. So this is your question.
Yeah, I work with Addy. I'm on the speed team as well. And I agree with you to some extent, because one thing we do tell people quite often is, how fast your site becomes interactive is directly proportional to how many users stay on your page and how many users and the revenue that you can make. But it's very hard to quantify that. And it's not easy to sort of just say, okay, 5 seconds improvement in let's just say, throttle conditions would give me X in revenue. It's really hard. And prior to my experience in Google, I worked in consultancies for a few years, and I had that same problem. Like, I would have to try and justify to my clients to say, hey, maybe you should try to speed up your site. But their very first response would be, why? I'd rather have a feature built. So it is hard. I think the best thing you can probably do there is just sort of use other metrics that's been explored by people like Addy. He set out case studies for Pinterest. He's written case studies on Twitter and on Tinder Web, and he's sort of identified how much they've noticed improvements by improving speed. So I feel like if you use that as sort of a metric and say, okay, these big players have noticed this much improvement in revenue and users actually viewing the page, you can actually bring that to your leadership and say, okay, maybe we should do the same.
Any other questions? All right, so let's have you have another question? I already had a lot of mic time, but I guess I would ask, what do you guys see as the future of what you might put in as best practices for us, like web developers? What do you see as like the next wave or the next steps? I mean, I think we had a talk on serverless already for speed and whatnot, so I'm just kind of curious what to prepare for.
It's really funny because I know what I want to say to you, but I don't think I can. And I mean that really honestly, because there's some really cool product ideas that are developing that are directly geared toward some of the heated discussions we're having around making sure people who are doing the right thing notice that it's worth the effort. So I can't really give you specifics. I'm really sorry, because I'm really genuine and honest, and I have a really hard time just not like blurting out all the answers. But there's a lot of discussions around that. So just like watch the space for a few months.
Okay. And
Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah. I think your question was just general, right? Like, what's the next big thing?
Yeah, I think it's kind of general. I mean, I think it's interesting that you guys, picked like four kind of topics to give us scores on, and you have to kind of abstract it out and give scores. I wanted to follow up, I guess, by asking what was the purpose of web.dev, and I want to say I feel like a lot of people are probably like me. They're probably trying to climb up in the rankings, and they're probably using the tool for that reason. So I just wanted to finish off that thought with that as well. And I think we're always looking for how is Google going to change in the future, and you have voice search and whatnot. And I mean, I don't know, it's just coming from the SEO perspective with the SEO score there. I think we're always just curious about that.
I think it would make a really good use case. So I think I can say that, like in identifying key use cases for the next year. I think helping people understand making healthy decisions for their website and how that can improve their discoverability, I think could be a really cool use case.
Okay. Yeah.
And to add to that, not directly related to SEO, but I think one thing would probably be seeing the next year and the year after is tools that just provide better guardrails, right?
Yeah.
Like we use, we're in web.dev and other resources, we're telling you what you need to do to improve your site. But what if all the tools you're using to build your powerful interactive SPAs and so forth did that automatically, right? So I think that's one thing we're really trying to push for this year.
I mean, I personally don't like SPAs, I like React or Angular or whatever. But I mean, I think it's interesting because I don't think those score highly on the speed tests personally. But because they have a lot of weight, right? And then you have the bundle phobia and the bundle weight coming in. And so I mean, I think ultimately, I mean, I try to make the best possible content, best possible website, and that's what I use the tools for. I'm not just trying to rank higher in Google, but I think in the end, it's sort of a.
But no, you hit it. You made a very good point. I think so many developers use things like React and Angular and so forth because it allows them to do what they need to do. But they do easily run into issues, right? And it's just like, what if there was things built on top of what they're already using, or actually built into it that lets them, have everything they need, but doesn't give them massive bundle size, right? So that's something we're trying to explore, and we're hoping to see a lot better the next year or so.
Okay. So it sounds like I should start using a framework.
No, whatever works for you, right? Like server rendered pages have worked for me for so many other reasons. If you don't need it, you don't need it, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.